Hello, everybody. This is EEPMON for the late night channel Eeps. And I just came back from the Ottawa Art Gallery art auction, and it was a fantastic evening meeting fellow artists and, of course, the OEG staff and patrons of the Ottawa Art Gallery and contributors and supporters for the arts. So it was such a great evening. The weather was beautiful. Can't ask for anything better. Now I'm at home. Join me with a cup of tea, a cup of coffee. Today I've got tea. So today I have another story to share with you, and it's about meeting the stars, my journey in the Flash industry and beyond as a generative artist. So, who knows Flash? Have you heard of Flash? It was such a craze during the 2000s. It was originally owned, well, probably not originally owned, but no, when I got into Flash, it was Flash version 3.0 by Macromedia, which was later acquired by Adobe, which I believe now they call it Adobe Animate. At that time, mind you, in episode 2, I told you that I was in school doing computer science and the world of like, Java and creating UI experiences and code. That was when Flash was really like taking off, where you would develop rich, they call it RIA, rich internet applications, merging code and visual aesthetics and graphics. It was like the marriage that I was looking for that combined these, my interest in art, my interest in code, and my interest in the World Wide Web, right? It was popping off like crazy back then. So to develop interactive experiences, Flash was the platform of choice. And at that time, there were, and I believe there continue to be, the rock stars are the stars of that industry. I can name a couple. I remember it was Grant Skinner, Yugo Nakamura, and like people like Joshua Davis were very heavy in this new space. Even before the word new media was coined a term, they were creating stuff, really cool stuff for web engagement that combined code and art, and it was such an amazing time for experimentation. And me as an artist, I can tell you, like I graduated from computer science from Gong College, and I decided to go back to school. I went back to I went to Carleton University for the Bachelor's of Information Technology, Interactive Multimedia and Design. Because at that time, I told you, right, the confluence of all these things coming together, art, tech, code, there were programs, courses, and curriculum that were developed specifically to address the intersections of all these things. So the BIT program, that's Bachelor's Information Technology, Interactive Multimedia Design stream, was to address this. And I took the course because I thought that would be something that would be closely aligned more of my, I started to figure out more of my interest, and that was sort of the area that I wanted to pursue. So as a student, of course, the Flash world started to emerge in Tangent, and I just decided, you know what, I've been doing, I have some programming knowledge, not really great, but enough knowledge from my computer science background. I've gone to college. I'm dabbling in art on the side. I continue to do it as something that even though I told myself in episode 2, I said, don't ever give up my art. So that stuck in my head. But, still, doing it as, more like, I'm trying to figure out and crack how to make that into a full-fledged career. But, but I have to do something combining Flash or code for web and art. Now, those rock stars and stars I mentioned earlier were these individuals that truly married and fused these two worlds together. And that was such an exciting time. And I decided as a student, you know what? There is a Flash conference in Toronto called, at the time, Flash in the Can, FITC. and I had to go there. I had a student discount, so I would pay. It was much more cheaper. I get student discounts to go there, and I need to understand that industry. So I did it. I booked the ticket, trained it down to Toronto. And also in that conference, there is something called the Flash Awards, where you get to submit your Flash website that kind of showing off your chops and art and code and all that to create some really cool websites. So as a student, I was like, you know what? Okay, like I said, I knew I could dabble in these things. I knew I'm gonna focus and finally create a Flash website, basically my portfolio, using my existing knowledge of art, code, and Flash. And I went ahead and I did it. I built this program. I built this website where, at the time, before responsive web browsing, where you've resized to really dynamically change, like that stuff never existed back then. But in Flash, in code, you were able to detect the size of the browser, and based on the size of the browser, it would trigger certain events. Okay, it was 800 by 600, then update the user interface to do this, etc. And I did that. My code was spaghetti code. Okay, it wasn't great. I'll tell you that much. But I did it. My first version of my website was a Flash website that was dynamic, and I was very proud of it. And I submitted it. I submitted for the Flash Awards Best Canadian Student Portfolio category. Okay. And I just felt, okay, give it a shot, do what you can. I found out later that I was a finalist for the Best Canadian Student Portfolio for the Flash in the Can conference. And I was extremely excited. I was like, wow, I got to the finals. This is crazy. So I wouldn't know if I won or not until I attended the conference. So that was this extra motivation. It's like, wow, okay. I kind of see where I'm at, and I can measure myself in comparison to, who are the competition. And if I'm at that level and I'm able to be in the finals, that signifies something. So long story short, I went to Toronto, I went to the conference, and I tell you, it blew my mind. Like, I have never, those 3 days of the conference was information overload. So much so I had the craziest headache afterwards. But it was so worth it because I met all the influencers of the time using Flash. They were there together in this conference. They flew in from Japan, they flew in from Europe, they flew in from US, all over the world, coming together to talk about cool stuff, bleeding edge cool stuff. 3 days, and I was like, wow, what is this energy? What is this feeling I have? I feel so invigorated. I feel like this is where I belong. This is where I belong. And I remember I listened to Joshua Davis. He did a talk because he was so into his game of this whole his art and tech he was so ahead of the times. And I was so curious. Everyone was curious. How did he do it? Because his art was generative art. That back in the early 2000s. It was 2005 that I went to that conference. And he talked about his process. He didn't really show the code, but he explained the process. And having dabbled in Flash and built my portfolio, I kind of understood what he meant. I kind of understood his process. So I'll talk about that later. I'll get to the Flash Awards. So again, the Flash Conference, met so many great people, listened to so many talks, so inspired, so intimidated, but so inspired at the same time. And then during the Flash Awards, as a finalist, you get to sit at the front with all the VIPs, with all, Grant Skinner was sitting right next to me. We're having a chat. And it was it was such a surreal moment. I still remember that time. I was like, wow, I'm with these people, with these rock stars of the industry. I'm hanging out with them. I was like, wow, this is such a great feeling. As it turns out, I did not win the 2005 Flash Awards. And sure, I was very disappointed. Come on, it was my first time in a competition of that caliber. And, when you get an L or you didn't win, it does sting. But you get over it, you learn, and I reflect upon it, and I go, hey, look, good for you that you able to do that. And I dare say that I knew that the mistakes I made in doing version 1, I learned a lot from that process, that I know that if I did version 2 of my website, it's going to be even better. So I'll talk about that later. The conference ended. I didn't win, but I got recognition. People knew of me. They knew how to reach out to me. I had my business cards. As all the students we were taught in school, I'd make sure your business cards are prepared. I gave them out. But back to the Joshua Davis situation, I remember I was on the Via Rail train from Toronto going back to Ottawa. And I just whipped up my laptop, opened the Flash, and I started coding, prototyping based on what he talked about. And lo and behold, I had a working prototype before I got to Ottawa. It actually worked. And I was like, oh, that's how it's done. It's a little bit, my first version was kind of quirky, but it got the job done. It generated the art or the prototype that I wanted to do. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. This is getting closer to my interest in really creating an art form of generative art that combines art and code. Like, there's something there. This is where I need to go. Of course, with the awe-inspiring talks of the conference really propelled me and energized and empowered me that I need to pursue this. Because I saw these people there, and they're all coming from around the world. I'm like, if they can do it, so can I. I have to be in that world. That is where my calling was. And I kept on, and I did it. So it goes to show, like, find your inspiration, find the inspiration. There are people out there that you have to meet. You have to learn. Nothing. The wheel is never. There's never like. It's not about like figuring out a new wheel or just trying something completely new. It's experience, get inspired, learn, and then slowly and surely you will develop your own artistic practice. But you have to start from somewhere. My somewhere was about code, about art, combining. It was the Flash days that really got my gears rolling. So, on that note, 2006 was the next Flash Awards, and I was like, okay, all right, I know I didn't get the first one. It was in the finals, but I know how to make it better. It was like Iron Man doing the first Iron Man suit. It was all clunky and big, and later he like modified. He made a version 2, version 3 got even better and better. It was like me, like just like back to the workshop, making version 2, make EEPMON version 2. Let's go, because I know if I could make it better, then I do feel that I have a chance of getting the finals again, and I did. I got in the finals with EEPMON version 2, and it was 2006 that I won the Flash in a Can Best Canadian Student category. 2006. Actually, you know what? I also have that trophy with me. 1 second. Here it is. This is the Flash in a Can 2006 award. Best Canadian Student. EricChan.ca. Yes, I still have that domain. Just reroutes to eepmon.com. This is the coveted. Everyone wanted this. Every design agency, every studio had to get a hands on this. This is the coveted Flash, the Flash in a Can, literally. Flash in a Can. There's a can opener, clearly. And I got one. So, having experienced that whole holistic process the second time, I kept on going. I did a third one. I did a version 4. I kept on going. But through those iterative process, right? the first time is a learning process. Second time is always a learning process. But every iteration you do is always an improvement. And as you go through these iterations, you will naturally meet like-minded individuals. You will engage with the industries that you want to pursue, because that's the natural flow of things. One thing leads to another. Sometimes the things that you think that you should be going, it is actually the off-road, off-path engagement that takes you to a totally different route. And those are probably the routes that you are may be the actual answer that you're looking for. So my career, of course, is not linear. But I can tell you this, that every time you pursue and every time you take action, there's always, of course, cause and effect. And with positive action, you will have positive results. So again, I'm 16 minutes in. So I want to sort of segue into something I'll talk about tomorrow, because this was the time when I start to really solidify understanding art and digital art and generative art was, for me, the medium. I started to discover my process, my practice. And then my next episode, I will talk about how I started to take that practice and put it into action. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed my story. Again, feel free to subscribe. Please comment any questions you have. Just want to say hi, leave a comment, whatnot. And I hope you enjoyed a bit of tea, coffee time for the late night channel Eves. Enjoy your evening. And until next time, this is episode 3, episode 4 tomorrow. Bye-bye.